dropped here at Daytona, and away we go for the first time. Nicholas Morcel, Sean.
Looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's, possibly a little bit of contact.
Now, as we've got three wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Go out here for Circuit Spa Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
See just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, Justin Sang.
They are ready to go. The lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Okayama International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons. Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the Alpha Touring Challenge Season number 8. We are here today at Road Atlanta for race number 5. My name is Mason Heimball with Team Goon Squad, bringing you the action here today, 1080p 60 frames a second, as we gear up for another exciting race here with the Alpha Touring Challenge. It has been a phenomenal season thus far, and I expect a lot of great racing yet again here tonight, as qualifying currently underway, drivers getting those tires warmed up, seeing what their best times are going to be here today, as right now we are going to go ahead and also run through some of our point standings here today, and just kind of walk through and see where everyone is currently standing. Now, for the team championship at the moment, Yellow Flag Motorsports sits at the very tippy top with 370 points. Curb Your Enthusiasm Autosport with 312 points. Real Friends Racing with 201 points. Breakfast for Dinner, 199 points. And Second Breakfast, 195 points. Just to round out your top 5 teams in the championship at the moment. Now, there are 2 different drivers' championships. There's an Alpha Championship as well as a Delta Championship. Everyone earns, from what I understand, all the points are counted the same, but you earn, depending on what championship you're in, the Delta being the Amateur Championship and the Alpha being the Pro Championship, you will be awarded for your wherever you finish, and you can also compete for your own championship inside of the amateur division, if you will. So essentially you could think of it as, well, it's really just 2 championships in one, to make it simple here. I'm overcomplicating it in my head, and it's just not coming out well. So we're going to scrap that for the time being and focus in on what we do know. And what we do know now is that we are starting to see drivers come across the line and put in official times here. Connor Roccatella at the very tippy top with a 1:30.32 as the time to beat. A 10th behind that is Edward Gorman in the 1:37 Honda. And then David Bauer in 3rd place with a 1:30.54 as his best time here at the moment. So slowly but surely, those tire temperatures are starting to come up, and they are able to put the grip down a little bit better and able to attack the turns just a little bit more. Now, after last week's race, we saw Micah Hendricks come away with the win. And a very solid win at that. So, if we can also pull up our... Aha! Beautiful. So, Micah Hendricks coming away with the win. And Robert Adams in that 2nd place position. Edward Gorman coming away with that 3rd place spot. Now, Micah Hendricks with Team Curb Your Enthusiasm Autosport, the team that is ultimately looking The team that is ultimately looking to try their best to really hold on to that second place spot in the team championship, which right now they very well could do so, but also they are just within reach of Yellow Flag Motorsports. Team Yellow Flag Motorsports consisting of Robert Abrams, Connor Acatella, Logan McKenzie, and Eric Statzer. So these 4 drivers have all done very well as we're tuned along here with Slugnificent here in the number 14 machine. And I do believe Slugnificent not officially on a team here, but is a lone driver. That is not correct, but either way, we'll figure that out one day. John Lazan currently holding provisional pole with a 129.556 with Team Second Breakfast, and we've really seen the Breakfast team, both of them, Breakfast for Dinner as well as Second Breakfast. Both of these teams have done phenomenal the past few races that we've seen here in the Alpha Touring Challenge, and it's just great to see that kind of collective, really just solid performance from all of these drivers. It seems like they all push each other to try and do well, and don't let one another kind of just fall down the grid, if you will. It seems like there's an internal push to one another to improve yourself, improve your racing, and try and come away with better positions at the end of the day. John Lazan, Connor Acatella, David Bauer, your current top 3 in qualifying at the moment. So for David Bauer and for Team Second Breakfast, it is going to be off to a relatively solid start here. I should say Team Breakfast for Dinner, not Second Breakfast. So either way, either how, as the names are relatively interchangeable, they are indeed separate teams in the grand scheme of things. At least when it comes down to point scoring, they are considered separate teams. Mike De Almeida here at the moment, another driver that I believe is a lone driver in the series, not necessarily racing for a team, but still out here doing well. Mike De Almeida currently, if I recall correctly here, currently sitting 20th in the point standings out of 41. So still up there in the points and still doing well from the past few times that I've seen Mike on track. So great to see him out here today at Road Atlanta on the full course layout, which I think will provide some great racing as we see someone getting a little sideways there. I believe that was Aaron Law. Indeed it is, the number 38 Audi, finding himself in the grass for just a moment, but continuing on, no harm, no foul. Looks like the car is in relatively okay shape. But as we are just about 6 minutes left here in qualifying, it is coming down to that point where any opportunity or any chances of drivers trying to close that gap between themselves and John Lazan, and so far the closest driver, and when I say close, I mean close, James Carr, by a couple hundredths of a second, a few hundredths of a second, is just behind John Lazan. I mean, if you were to put these cars side by side across the checkered line, it would look like they came across the line at probably the same exact time. But either way, it is incredible, just the pace consistency across the field here with the Alpha Touring Challenge. I mean, we have over 20 drivers here in today's race. Not all of them are currently out on track, but the fact that all of these drivers are able to stay within a second, 2 seconds of one another in qualifying as well as in race pace is just astonishing. It is incredible. You really don't get a group of drivers like that too often that are able to accomplish stuff like that. It really proves, it really provides some excellent racing, like what we've seen here in the past, and like what we've also seen in the past is a similar race layout for tonight. A 20-minute sprint followed by a 30-minute feature. I could have those backwards, but either way, being that myself cover a lot of broadcasts, it sometimes is very easy for myself to get the wires a little crossed, and one thing kind of seems similar to another, or, well, you know the deal. But Edward Gorman actually was able to improve the time here from John Lazan, as well as James Carr also improving his time. A 129.375 is now the time to beat, and Edward Gorman is looking to try his best to start on the front row here and see if he can hold out that position. And Edward Gorman, I do believe is another driver that is a solo driver here, not competing in a team or 14 points, but is out here performing very, very well. And if I was a team, I would definitely be looking at Edward Gorman and saying to myself, oh, we definitely need to have some Edward Gorman in our life. But nonetheless, under 4 minutes left to go here in qualifying, and things are down to the wire at this point, with lap times being about 1 minute and 30 seconds. It is not going to be a lot of time left before the checkered flag is waved, and it's, well, right now looking like Edward Gorman and James Carr are going to be the front row, with John Lazan and Connor Acatella in our second row. We won't go too much further now. There's still time left for drivers to improve their times. Edward Gorman, though, looking mighty comfortable as he comes across the line. It's not going to be an improvement this time around. A 131.17. A couple seconds off his fastest lap here tonight so far. James Carr just behind him, almost about to cross the line here in that number 19 machine. We'll see if he's going to be able to improve this time, as he's right on the tail of his teammate John Lazan as well. We can see both of these drivers make their way across the checkered line as they come through the final bend here. .131.827 for James Carr, and a 129.52 for John Lazan. But that is not going to be enough of an improvement here in order to push his way either into second, or better yet, into first. Slugnificent out of the final turn and across the line. It's going to be a 129.9 here for the number 14 driver. Not quite enough to make it into improve his positions here, but Logan McKenzie, a 129.58. That's going to be enough to move himself up into fourth place into the second row. Less than a minute left to go before we see the checkered flag fly here for qualifying. Edward Gorman still your provisional pole holder. John Lazan finding himself in a rough spot here on his final flying lap, or, well, second to last flying lap, and a 129.34 here for James Carr, the number 19 machine, by a mere 0.5 of a second is able, 0.4 of a second, excuse me, is able to improve of Edward Gorman's pace here. And my, oh my. And there it is. The checkered flag is waved and everyone is yoinked back into pit road as we get ourselves ready for the start of round number 5 here at Road Atlanta. It has been a fantastic season thus far, and I expect some great racing yet again here tonight with your following drivers. Up in the front row is James Carr and Edward Gorman. Second row, John Lazan, Logan McKenzie. Third row is Connor Acatella and Slugnificent. Fourth row, David Bauer and Colin Hopkins. The first time that I've seen the number 49 driver out here on the track. With our fifth row being Andrew Parente, Mike De Almeida. Sixth row, Dom Savio and Trevor Lambert-Lee. Taking up our sixth row. Moving on down the grid, Scott Weib, Casey Gallagher in our seventh row, Mark Darnell, Mark Crawford in our eighth row, Kevin Clark and Zach Perry in the ninth row, Aaron Law and Noel Fulgenzi in our 10th row, Micah Hendricks and Nick Beta in our 11th row, and Raymond 2 rounding out the field in our final 12th row. And let's go ahead and get ourselves ready for the green flag to drop and for the 5 red lights to tick away our drivers here today. Road Atlanta always providing some excellent racing, and with these cars and with this race layout, I think it is going to be fantastic here today as drivers prepare for those 5 red lights. There they are. Out they go. Green flag drops. Edward Gorman, James Carr off the line. Everyone having a very, very good start. 4 wide, you can see just a little bit further back. Edward Gorman, he's going to be able to get away from the rest of the field about a little over a quarter of a second as they make their way into turn number 1. Looking through the rest of the field as they all make their way side by side for some of these drivers, some of them trying to get into that single file line as quickly as possible. 20 minutes that we have in our sprint here tonight. And already we got a driver finding himself mowing the grass here just a little bit, making the landscaper's job just a little bit easier or harder, depending on which side of the fence you're on with that. But Edward Gorman up at the front of the field. James Carr getting right on the heel of that number 137, trying to stay as close as he can. But speaking of close, it is astonishing just how close these drivers are between one another. Almost a quarter of a second between some of them, floating under about a half a second for the most part at the moment, as we see just a long string. Oh, I wish that was a better camera angle for that. A long string of drivers making their way through the final few turns here at Road Atlanta. And across the line, this will bring us lap 2. And so far, a great way to kick off our sprint race with Edward Gorman able to really have a phenomenal start here. And the rest of the field just doing a great job off the starting line. And you can see this Slugnificent just on the bumper of John Lazan, that number 77. Slugnificent has also been a driver here in this series that has had great pace and has shown some very, very good top 5 finishes, top 10s, and then some. Logan McKenzie gonna have a James Carr locked bumpers here at the moment, and I just love how close you can stay. You can stay behind with these cars. I mean, it's like some old school NASCAR stuff. I'm all here for it. And just for a moment here, I want to ride on board with James Carr, the number 19 machine. Just get a little bit of a better idea of what these drivers are doing behind the wheel here at Road Atlanta with these cars. You can see the dashboard on the right-hand side of your screen as well. See just how fast these guys are going, as well as what gear they're currently in. A great move here from Carr. Looking to the outside of McKenzie there for a moment. McKenzie's now going to get alongside of Gorman. It's a fight for the lead, as McKenzie makes the move up to the front, and look at this, it is just chaos behind these drivers. Oh my, it has heated up here. Logan McKenzie now gonna be the man in the hot seat, as there is just a firestorm of drivers behind him. And even further back, we've got multiple drivers battling for various positions in the midfield and beyond. But up towards the front, that is where things get really exciting. James Carr once again looks to the inside through turns 11 and makes it happen, but McKenzie with the pace is going to be able to stay right alongside as they come out of the final turn and across the line. James Carr to the outside. He's going to be able to carry that momentum a little bit more, as McKenzie's going to have to back off to allow himself to rotate. Settling back out into single file formation for the most part, as they turned up the dial and then some here for a moment. But I think realizing just how spicy things were getting there for a moment, I think a lot of them kind of realized maybe we should dial this one back a moment. And Slugnificent just staying right there on John Lazan, not giving him any room to breathe here. And frankly, a lot of these drivers aren't doing the same for one another at this point. Back towards the midfield, a battle for 10th place as Micah Hendricks fends off Mark Crawford in the 504 Honda. Various battles happening here in the midfield and beyond, as a lot of the drivers towards the front start to go single file, and frankly, a lot of the drivers here in the field are going to start to do the same here. Everyone staying very cautious at this point in the race, and as a lot of the field making their way through the S's here at this point. It's with about, well, we're almost halfway through our sprint race at the moment. It's, I think at this point for a lot of these drivers, just a matter of consistency more than anything, as we see Connor Acatella get right on the tail of Slugnificent. We can take a look at that here as we ride on the nose camera of the number 55 machine and get a good look here at how close he is coming to the tail end of Slugnificent in some of these turns. Raymond to Mark Crawford. They are going to start to become one of the closest battles happening on track here, as well as it looks like Kevin Clark and Colin Hopkins. A lot of these drivers are able to stay within packs, and oh boy, there goes Noel Fulgenzi, the number 97, finding himself tipping it into the grass there for a moment, but bringing it back in, and no harm, no foul. Logan McKenzie continuing to feel the pressure of Edward Gorman, but James Carr is just loving this at this point. He's roughly a second and a half. You can see that on the left-hand side of your screens away from Logan McKenzie. And last time by, he set the fastest lap of the race with a 1:29.32, and he might just be looking to improve that here once again. As McKenzie's starting to feel the pressure of Edward Gorman, John Lazan, and even Slugnificent in once he dials them back in. But having these drivers in these battles like this, it really starts to slow you down. Even if it's just marginally, that margin is just enough for whoever's in front of you to build distance and to try and give themselves a little bit of room to work with. As we are just about halfway into our race today, Zach Perry looks onto the tail of Trevor Lambert. The 93 Spotify machine now gonna be under fire from the 56 Hyundai. As he is just right on his tail. Mark Darnell as well, looking for some of the action in on this as well. The 83 Audi starting to close in the distance between himself and Zach Perry. Now, speaking of Zach Perry is one of the drivers in the Delta Championship competing for that said championship. As well as Eric Statzer, who does not seem to be here today. But for Zach Perry, he sits second place with 96 points and is actually tied with Eric Statzer for 96 points. So after today, Zach Perry will find himself in the lead for the Delta Championship, and that is going to be a great, great day for Zach Perry. In the top 5 of the Delta Championship, just to run through it real quickly, Eric Statzer, Zach Perry, Scott Wybe, Noel Fulgenzi, and Aaron Law. So those are your top 5 amateur drivers in this series. And in the Alpha Championship, it's Micah Hendricks with 205 points, Logan McKenzie in second with 195 points, Robert Abrams with 166 points, David Bauer 164 points, and Edward Gorman with 153 points. And as I was looking away at some of the race notes that I was given for today, David Bauer, John Lazan, Connor Roccatello really starting to put the pressure down here for the battle for 6th place. And Road Atlanta is going to be a track that is not easy for passing. This is where that consistency is going to come into play, and why we're seeing a lot of these drivers just staying right on the tail of one another. And as we head through the S's here, this is a particular spot where one small mistake, one tire into the grass can cost you many positions in most situations. Now, these drivers, and from what we've seen in the past, they know the tracks well, they know their cars well, and they definitely are well aware of the consequences of iRacing grass, just as much as anyone else is in the iRacing service. So they are obviously going to avoid that as much as possible, but it is always something that can, well, it can get you if you're not careful. And right now we've got teammate. Look at this. Look at this. David Bauer and John Lazan, like, just, it's like a train. John Lazan's the... It's more like David Bauer is kind of like the, it's like a train. It's a train reference I'm trying to make here. But anyway. Connor Roccatella continuing to put the pressure down to David Bauer. And a little bit further in the back of the field here, we've got some drivers starting to reel one another in and really start to develop some packs back here. Now, with about 6 minutes left to go, we'll see just how much this is going to develop for these drivers, but I'd have to imagine that it's going to create a very interesting dynamic going into these final few minutes of the race here. And oh boy, Kevin Clark finding himself in some... Wow. See, folks, and this is exactly what I was talking about earlier, how if you find yourself in a mistake through the S's there, particularly anywhere on this track, it's going to be a bad time in most cases. And for Kevin Clark, I'm sure that he's just thankful that he's still out here racing and not in the wall somewhere. That's ideal at best for that type of situation. James Carr, as he comes across the line, the man has managed to come away with a 3.5 second gap between himself and Logan McKenzie at this point in the race. And with 5 minutes left to go here in our 20-minute sprint, I genuinely think he's going to have plenty of time to work with here. Plenty of room to work with, not too much to worry about in the way of battles. And I think for James Carr, this is going to be a absolutely incredible finish for himself today. David Bauer and Connor Roccatella continue their fights here for 6th place. Connor with Yellow Flag Motorsports has not really allowed David to get too far away from him. And David with Team Breakfast for Dinner, as well as his teammate John Lazan, sort of teammate John Lazan with Team Second Breakfast. These two drivers kind of, playing a little bit of team strategy here, it seems like, as they were interlocked with one another for a moment. The pace has since then started to dissipate a little bit here, but either way, both John Lazan and David Bauer are doing phenomenally well for their teams, sitting in the top 10 at the moment. And Connor Roccatella with Yellow Flag Motorsports also looking for good finishes for himself and his team, as Connor and Logan McKenzie both inside the top 10, and Logan in the top 3 at this point. So, and Robert Abrams as well, I know he's here, or at least I thought he was here. Never mind. Okay, either way. Logan McKenzie and Connor Roccatella, Yellow Flag Motorsports, going to have a good points finish here today for themselves and their team. And for breakfast for dinner, David Bauer and James Carr, I think they're going to have a phenomenal day themselves. Second breakfast, the only driver present for themselves is John Lazan, unfortunately for himself. So being that he's in the top 5 right now, that's going to give himself personally some good points, but for the team, it will be some, but I don't think it will quite be what they're looking for at the end of the day for team points. But also, it is worth noting that not everyone here, not all the teams here are looking for those points. They're not seeking for those digital points, if you will, to say the least. But it is sometimes something of a goal for drivers and teams to do their best and to try and come away with, whether it's a win or a top 3 in the points, to have a little bit of bragging rights is nothing to be shameful of. We are 1 minute left before the checkered flag is flown, and it is going to be the final time that drivers can make any sort of attempts at, I would say passing, but passing is really not an option here. It's more or less going to be an attempt to try and rattle whoever you're on the tail of, and Edward Gorman on the tail of Logan McKenzie, I think is looking to do just that. Mark Crawford and other drivers battling it out here for the last time. Mark Crawford goes off track here in the 504 machine as Scott Weib and Trevor Lambert continue their fight for 14th. The white flag has been flown. It is the final time to take it around track here at Road Atlanta. James Carr, he's going to be the first one to take it across the line, and it will be a victory here for the number 19 machine and for Team Breakfast for Dinner. Logan McKenzie comes across the line in second as other drivers scramble across the line here as well. We'll watch some of the other battles as they make their way through the final few turns. Mark Crawford and Kevin Clark having a final pass that we didn't get to see because they were over the other side of the hill. But everyone doing a phenomenal job here, coming across the line, finishing out today's race, or at least today's sprint race. And going to go ahead and gear up for a little bit of a warm-up session, about 10 minutes that we should have here for drivers to get themselves ready to go for our 30-minute feature here today at Road Atlanta with James Carr, Logan McKenzie, and Edward Gorman coming away with your top 3 finishes here today for our sprint race. All right, so there that is. Let's take a look at the post-race results for our sprint, as we are going to now have about 10 minutes of a warm-up session and see if we're going to get any drivers up here in the booth, potentially, for some post-race interviews. At the moment, it does not seem like we will, but that is going to be a-okay. We'll put on a little bit of music, we'll set the vibe a little bit, and for the meantime, we'll just run through our post-race results, and we'll also get ourselves ready for the action for our feature. James Carr, Logan McKenzie, Edward Gorman coming away with your top 3 in their respective orders. Slugnificent in 4th place, John Lazan in 5th, David Bauer in 6th place, Connor Acatella in 7th, Andrew Parente in 8th, Mike De Almeida in 9th, Micah Hendricks in 10th place, Raymond 2 in 11th, Mark Darnell in 12th, Zach Perry in 13th, Trevor Lambert in 14th, Scott Weib in 15th, Mark Crawford in 16th, Kevin Clark in 17th, Colin Hopkins in 18th, and I believe Noel Fulgenzi in 19th, Dom Savio in 20th, Casey Gallagher in 21st, Aaron Law in 22nd, then Nick Beta coming away in 23rd. Just to round out our post-race results, and as right now, so there's a little bit less of a warm-up than I thought. That is okay. I, for some reason, thought it was a little bit longer. But as we have just a few minutes left to go here, folks, we're going to take a quick break up here in the booth. And, folks, we will be right back in just a few short moments. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere because we are going to be back for more action with the Alpha Touring Challenge in just a few moments. Alrighty, folks, so just a few short moments until we see the checkered flag fly for our short warm-up session, and we will get into our starting grid for our feature race. So remember, 30 minutes that we will have for our feature event, and that will be what I expect to see some spicy racing from these drivers, some exciting racing. And frankly, from what we've seen, a very, very difficult track to make any sort of passing happen. It ultimately is going to have to come down to the start and how well you're able to get off the line, and how you're able to handle the battles that develop after the green flag has dropped. So, for our starting grid for our feature race, the top 12 have been inverted for this feature event. Micah Hendricks, Mike De Almeida will start in the front row. Andrew Parente, Connor Acatella in our second row. David Bauer, John Lazan taking up our third row with Slugnificent and Edward Gorman in our fourth row. Logan McKenzie and James Carr taking up our fifth row, and Raymond 2 and Mark Darnell taking up the sixth row here at the moment. Moving on down the grid, we have Zach Perry, Trevor Lambert in our seventh row, Scott Wybe, Mark Crawford in our eighth row. Kevin Clark and Colin Hopkins in the ninth row, Noel Fulgenzi, Dom Savio in the 10th row, Casey Gallagher, Aaron Law rounding out the field here as we now see the lights go out and we are off to the races here for the first time for our feature event. Micah Hendricks, Mike De Almeida going to be the ones in the hot seat at the moment as the rest of the field scrambles for positions behind them, making their way through the first turn here at Road Atlanta. Everyone seemingly having a relatively good start here so far. Micah Hendricks going to try and build up a bit of distance as he's able to get out away from David Bauer. Mike De Almeida, David Bauer going to be up ahead of the number 26 machine now, getting some of that clean air in his view. Andrew Parente gets a little loose and has to recover it, but does so very, very well. The number 15 machine definitely finding himself in a spicy situation. Recovers well. Slugnificent finds himself in the grass. And a big, big slide job here for the number 14 machine and rejoins the track almost perfectly and blends right back into the race. Unfortunately, going to come at a bit of a position loss. But for Slugnificent, he will still be out there racing. And I think for the most part, that's all you could ask for in a situation like that. As Micah Hendricks continues with his lead, David Bauer trying to close the gap. Connor Roccatella up here in that third place spot where we've seen him last time in the sprint race, right back where he was. And right along with David Bauer here as well. And John Lazan finds himself off track. A big, big contact here for the number 77 machine. Let's take a look at a quick instant replay, see exactly how this one unfolded here for John. And it looks like a bit of contact here as he gets sent sideways and smacks right into the tire wall barrier. Unfortunate events here for John Lazan. Has to take it back down into pit road. Scott Wybe very narrowly avoiding calamity here as he's able to bring it back onto the track after finding himself in the grass. And you can see as soon as you get into that grass, it's almost unpredictable where your car is going to go. Almost 3 wide action that we have up here in the battle for 5th place. 2 wide, 2 deep. Yeah, that's right. Bringing out some of their NASCAR commentary here as McKenzie's able to get out ahead for just a moment. A great shot of the drivers making a flyby there. And Edward Gorman, James Carr duking it out here. Gorman's going to look to the inside of McKenzie. McKenzie fires back with another shot. James Carr goes off track into the grass. Gonna have to fight his way back. And it continues to be some spicy racing here for race number 5, round number 5 of the Alpha Touring Challenge, season number 8. Micah Hendricks, your current race leader, with just over a second gap between himself and David Bauer. As more of the midfield continue to duke it out here for position, trying to stay within eyesight or within bumper's reach of one another. as this is the same point in the race where we saw in the sprint where this is where it's time to settle things out. It's time to get settled in and hit those marks. Stay consistent. Noel Fulgencio looks to the inside of Dom Savio. Dom's still going to have the advantage for a moment, but he's not going to have the pace. Noel, the 97 Hyundai, doing great work through the final few turns, able to get out ahead. Now into 16th and looking fantastic here. Noel on a mission to try and move himself up the pack here as much as he can. Andrew Parente, James Carr, they continue their fight here in the battle for 12th. The number 15 machine, or excuse me, Trevor Lambert and Andrew Parente, not James Carr. Carr is just a little bit further back. Slugnificent, the number 14, Zach Perry, going to be just behind him, almost under a quarter of a second between these two in some spots. As Micah Hendricks, as he comes across the line with a 129.96 as his best time here. As again, everyone now getting to the point of just staying consistent, because at this point, that's all you're going to be able to do in order to, in hopes of the driver ahead of you making a mistake, slowing down enough to get alongside them and make that pass. Looking on the errors of drivers ahead of you and ultimately trying to get into the mirrors of your driver, of whoever you're trying to pass, and let them know that you've got the pace to be right on them. And here it is, Slugnificent showing us exactly how that's done. With Mark Darnell to the outside, Slugnificent takes that inside line and makes the move clean and clear. Great driving there from Slugnificent. James Carr also making the moves on Andrew Parente up into 12th. Colin Hopkins, the number 49 Hyundai, also falling in the mix of this pack here as well. And our first entry here into pit road, Andrew Parente, the number 15 machine, going to be the first driver to come down and grab a fresh set of tires or fuel, which is a little odd, a little strange. But we'll take it as it is. John Lazan also down here for quite some time, actually. He's been here for quite a while. But I failed to notice So for just a moment here, I want to ride on board with Logan McKenzie, a driver who's really shown some great pace here, both in the sprint as well as in the feature, and just kind of get an idea of what he's doing behind the wheel here of this 04 machine, as currently holding on to 5th place at the moment and looking to come away with either a top 5 or potentially maybe a 4th place finish if he can track down Mike De Almeida. But McKinsey with Yellow Flag Motorsports is looking quite well out here today, not only for himself but for his team. Both himself and Connor Acatella have done phenomenally well during this race, and for their team, they're going to be scoring some very good points here today in further extending their lead that they have in the team championship at the moment. Noel Fulgenzi continuing his really solid run here in the number 97, currently sitting in 18th, but putting the pressure on Kevin Clark in that number 89 machine. We're seeing Noel really start to turn up the fire here. Mike De Almeida, Edward Gorman, Raymond 2, as well as Slugnificent. Oh, Logan McKenzie. Okay, I got that all mixed up. Logan McKenzie, Mike De Almeida, Edward Gorman, and Raymond 2 all in a groove here. Starting to close the distance to that number 04 machine as best as they can. A great shot of the action here as well as they come through the S's. Edward Gorman looking into that outside of Raymond 2. Gonna go door to door with one another, or excuse me, Mike De Almeida and Edward Gorman. Mike trying his best to get the gas on the exit, but not quite gonna have the pace as Edward Gorman going to have that outside there. And going to be able to get the throttle on a lot sooner than that of Mike De Almeida. But Raymond 2 also starting to see a bit of an opening here for himself as he goes alongside the number 26 machine. Getting himself just enough room to push ahead, and Raymond 2 up into 6th place at this moment. Edward Gorman in that 5th place spot with almost a second between himself and Raymond. Has about almost 2 seconds to close to Logan McKenzie before he's fighting for 4th place. And as we are just over 10 minutes into our 30-minute feature, there is plenty of time to be able to make something like that happen. Dom Savio and Trevor Lambert, we tune in at the perfect time as they make contact. And Trevor Lambert, the Spotify 93 machine, recovering very well, but Aaron Law gets to the side, and whoa, boy. That is definitely going to be looked at in the race control booth, I would have to imagine. Someone's definitely not happy right now. Let's take a look at this one more time, just to kind of see how this all unfolded. So this is the first initial contact that Trevor had to an attempt to rejoin the track. Now here comes Aaron Law. Aaron Law looks to the inside, and man, just not enough room between these two. And I don't think Trevor expected Aaron to make that move to the inside. It definitely was a dicey situation for both of them. Ultimately, I'm not race control. It's not my call to say who was in the wrong and who was in the right. But that's, like I said, that is definitely going to be looked at, I have a feeling, post-race. So at this point, almost, oh boy, who was that? That was Noel Fulgenzi, the 97 machine, getting a little sideways there, a little more than he'd probably prefer. but recovering well and keeping himself out on track here. But as I was mentioning, this is the point in the race where everyone's got room to work with now. Everybody has about, well, anywhere between a second or more of distance between themselves and the next driver. So again, at this point, this is where you want to just keep your head down. You want to settle in and click off laps and stay consistent. So while we kind of see this happening, let's go ahead and ride on board from the helmet camera of David Bauer here, and let's just have a listen to the sights and sounds here at Road Atlanta for just a moment. So that was a lap on board here with David Bauer. Just getting an idea of what it's like to turn a lap here in one of these Hyundai Velosters. I believe that's a Veloster. James Carr starts to close the distance between himself and Mike De Almeida. James Carr, currently in that 9th place position, wants to improve upon that here. Potentially come away with an 8th place position once things are all said and done. As he's right on the bumper now of that number 26 machine. There it is, the slingshot to the outside. Goes right alongside Mike here and sets himself up the outside in this turn, and through the chicane. It's a beautiful setup here for James Carr. He put himself in the right position to make that pass happen. Now James Carr in that 8th place spot with a almost 3.5 second gap to Slugnificent, with just under 15 minutes left here before we see the checkered flag fly. Noel Fulgenzi closing in on the tail of Zach Perry. Number 56 machine, both of these drivers fighting tooth and nail, it seems like, for pace at this moment. Noel getting right to the bumper of that number 56 Hyundai, and he is looking to make that pass happen here. Now under 10 minutes left to go. And with drivers scattered around the track and only a couple battles that have started to develop here. This is at this point, any mistake is going to cost you very dearly, as it's going to be almost impossible to recover from any severe mistakes. Now, getting a little bit wobbly, getting a little loose, not exactly going to end your race, but finding yourself in the grass, having to cut through the grass, or even scraping the wall and slowing yourself down, that will have massive implications at this point, as 9 minutes left to go, with lap times being at about 1.5 minutes, and with how difficult passing is here, like it's not going to be something that is feasible for practically any driver in this grid. Logan McKenzie, Edward Gorman, Raymond 2, they're starting to close the distance between one another. The battle for 4th place beginning to shape up here, as McKenzie looks to try and do everything in his power to rebuild some of that distance. As we ride on the nose camera of the 996 machine. A great look here through the chicane as Raymond stays with Edward Gorman as close as possible. Almost 1/4 of a second between these drivers at the moment. Under 1/4 of a second between McKenzie and Edward Gorman. And almost as the sun is setting here in Georgia, the lights begin to turn on, the headlights begin to turn on for these drivers, as well, it's not necessarily impossible to see on the track right now, but if the race did go any longer, they would definitely be racing into the night. But luckily, they will be ending things just at sunset. So it'll be a perfect way to end out the night, as there is almost 6 minutes left to go. Raymond too, doing a phenomenal job of continuing to stay on the tail of Edward Gorman, and just goes to show the skill of these drivers, the talent that is in this field. I've said it plenty of times before, but it is not often that you find racing of this caliber on the iRacing service, and it is just phenomenal that we here at Team Goon Squad have the privilege and honor of bringing you all the coverage of the Alpha Touring Challenge. It's incredible to see this great group of drivers and this great league that is developed here on the iRacing platform, and for us to be able to be a part of it in a relatively, well, I say a small way, but some might say otherwise. Either way, under 5 minutes left to go. Logan McKenzie still under fire from Edward Gorman and Raymond 2. Micah Hendricks, your race leader, still at this point in time. David Bauer in that second place position, and Connor Acatella in third. Edward Gorman gets off track here a little bit, and that's going to be enough to send him off the pace here. And Raymond 2 is going to take his spot. Logan McKenzie is going to enjoy the clean air. And that is, folks, that is exactly how a battle disintegrates in a matter of seconds. Colin Hopkins making the move around Mark Darnell, and a very clean move at that. Dom Savio also looking in at some of the action here as well. Two minutes left to go. David Bauer, Connor Acatella. The battle for second place. The closest battle that we have developing on track at the moment. Bauer has shown great consistency. Connor Acatella has shown great consistency as well. Will either one of these drivers will Connor be able, through this section right here, ideally you want to set yourself up for a pass in the chicane, and Connor has to be able to get the momentum to get alongside David Bauer in order to make that happen. And folks, that is a lot easier said than done. As we can see, Connor's been doing this for quite some time, and it is not an easy feat to accomplish. Under a minute left on the board here. Connor going to try everything in his power to make something happen here. Micah Hendricks. This might actually, they might actually have one more lap. And there it is. Connor Acatella, David Bauer, they go side by side, but David's going to be able to hold on to that second place spot. And there it is, the checkered flag flies. Micah Hendricks comes across the line for the win. Connor with a last second send in the chicane, but it wasn't enough, but still a third place finish for Connor. David Bauer coming away with second as the remainder of the field comes across the line here. Aaron Law and Kevin Clark having their own bit of a battle back here. It seems to have disintegrated a little bit as they come across the line. And what a finish to today's race. An absolutely incredible day here for Micah Hendricks and for Team Curb Your Enthusiasm Motorsport. David Bauer with Team Breakfast for Dinner. Connor Acatella with Yellow Flag Motorsports. All three of these teams coming away with great points and great finishes here today. As we're going to go ahead and get ourselves ready for our post-race interviews. We'll see which of the drivers are going to be up here in the waiting room first, as we're going to have to await for some of these drivers to finish out their parade lap here, their victory laps, before they make their way over here into the waiting room for their post-race interviews. But folks, what a phenomenal day here at Road Atlanta. Some fantastic racing that we have seen here from these drivers and from these teams. It has just been astonishing to see the caliber performance here from these drivers and from this field. So folks, if this is something that you are watching and you would like to be a part of, you can see the website on the bottom of your screen, so you can head on over to that and find all the information that you need to join and be a part of this series and see if it's something that you would like to be a part of. So the first driver that we are going to have here in the booth is going to be Mr. Connor Acatella, and it looks like potentially he might be one of the only drivers that we're going to have an interview with here today. So Connor is going to have a little bit of a special time with us. Connor, welcome to the booth. Congratulations on your podium finish here today. It was an incredible race, both for our sprint as well as our feature race. You were a man on a mission here today. It seemed like you had great pace, but unfortunately, this is not really the track for passing. A lot of it comes down to consistency and being able to just hit your marks every time and stay consistent with your laps. But Connor, I mean, you had a great battle with David there going into the end, and it really looked like you were going to have a chance to maybe make a pass there going through the chicane on the last lap, but it's a tough battle. And Connor, I mean, kind of walk me through what your expectations were for tonight, and what was kind of your goal coming into round 5 tonight.
Yeah, thanks. Honestly, I went up. I didn't have many expectations because I didn't get to practice too much. So always happy when I can make something work in those situations. But you said it best. It's a consistency track. It's absolutely, with the lower draft, we were trying to pull on the straights, and you gain a tenth at absolute most. So you try to make moves when you can. But I just went in. I said, heck, I'm just gonna hit my marks, do the best I can. I'm not an overly consistent driver, but the heat race went about as heat race did. David had a little more pace than I did, and pulled up 6th, and then it had me for a good position in the second half, and think it was more due to other people fighting and maybe some misfortune behind me that I got third rather than my outright pace. But checkered flags, that's third place for me, so I'm pretty happy.
Hey, you know what? A podium's a podium. No matter how you obtain it, I think it's always well earned here in the Alpha Touring Challenge. But Connor, I mean, after tonight, we head to the Nürburgring. We head to the Grand Prix portion of the Nürburgring. Thankfully, as I'm sure the full Nürburgring would be just horrendous for anyone. But Connor, we head there next week. We head to Germany, and it's going to be a lot more interesting action, I feel, heading next week. What's kind of your outlook heading into the Nürburgring, and what do you think your goal is going to be there for not only yourself but for your team? You guys currently hold the team championship lead, and you guys have been doing phenomenally well this past few races. So overall, what's your personal goal, and what do you think your goal is as a team?
Well, personal goal, first of all, you're vehemently wrong. I will take anybody on the Nordschleife any day of the week in a touring car. I do pretty well there, all things considered. But anyway, for me, next week I'm going to be looking at, it's a good track. I like it for touring cars. Realistically, I'm trying to get in my P10 to P5 sweet spot that I kind of like to hang out in. There's a lot of technical corners. The beginning's technical. You got to rotate the car. And then there's some good sweepers where you got to have good lines and make sure you have good throttle management. So I'll be looking to get hopefully in that P7-ish range and see what happens. But it should be an alpha challenge, so that always throws a wrench into it. But for the team, like I said, I take it's the top two get the points for the team. So it's really just about making sure your van's up there no matter what, whether it's me, Logan, or Slug. I really don't care as long as the team gets there and gets our points. So always happy to let guys by if they're quicker and just make sure you maximize a team result.
Absolutely. Well, you guys have all done a phenomenal job here the past few races this entire season thus far, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing you guys continue to dominate the season and continue to come away with your strong performances. But Connor, before I let you go and crack open that champagne bottle with your teammates and fellow drivers, anyone you want to give a shout out to or thank you before you head out tonight?
Yeah, it's going to be a water bottle, not a champagne bottle. I didn't turn my fan on here. It's tough racing out there. Shout out to my girlfriend Maggie. A couple buddies might watch. They tuned in once in the blue moon. So if you're on, guys, hello. Race for you, obviously. So that's about it.
All right, Connor. Well, thank you for joining me up here in the booth. It's always a pleasure, and hopefully get to talk to you again next week.
Absolutely. Take it easy, man.
You as well. Thank you. Alrighty, folks, that was Connor Roccatella out of the booth, coming away with your third place finish. David Bauer, unfortunately, not going to be able to make it his way to the booth today, but we do have the man of the hour, Mr. Micah Hendricks, coming away with the victory today. Not only for the sprint, but also the feature. Micah, I mean, you were on fire here today. It seemed like Road Atlanta and Micah Hendricks just kind of were symbiotic with one another, and it just meshed very well, not only for yourself, but for your car and for your team. Micah, I mean, was there lots of practice put in? Was this just one of those tracks that just clicked really well for you? What kind of led to your success here, you think, tonight?
Well, I think the biggest contributor to my success was actually, running out of fuel in the heat race, which put me in a good position for the reverse grid. So really unfortunate. I put one, I thought the race was going to go one less lap. So a little bit unfortunate. I was really looking forward to racing with the guys up there, but no, there wasn't a lot of practice going into it. I'm finally back on the Honda, which is my normal main car. So it was nice to be able to capitalize on a lot of good points while having to start. I swapped one car already, and if you swap twice, you have to start in last place. So a little bit of tactical on this track, because I know this track quite well, and it's easier to pass than others. So just a little bit lucky there, and great racing from everybody.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic racing. And looking into next week, we head to Nürburgring. The Grand Prix layout and there, I expect the racing to be a little bit more on the technical side, but also passing could be something that is more prominent next week. So what's kind of your outlook next week? What's kind of your game plan heading to the Nürburgring?
Game plan, I need to do a little bit more practice than I did. You know, I was not the fastest car on track tonight. You know, Raymond was really fast. David was really fast. Connor, pretty much everybody that finished near around me. And then James, like I said last week, this is his favorite track. So really unfortunate he kind of had a little incident in turn one. But I think if he didn't go off, he'd have been fighting there with us. So I think a little bit of test and tune for me going into next week will be what I need to do.
Well, Micah, it's been a pleasure to get an opportunity to chat with you here tonight, and also to watch you dominate tonight's race. It was great to kind of just see you out there just airing it out and just having a good old time. But Micah, before I let you go, before you get to celebrating with your teammates, fellow drivers, anyone you want to give a shout out to or thank you before you go?
I think I want to give a shout out to James Carr. You know, putting it on pole position would have been great to fight him for the pole position there, but just wasn't able to. So shout out to him. You know, quick lap, won the heat race. He should have won the feature. So just really good driver. Always love running with him. And then, you know, shout out to Logan for keeping the wheels on the league turning, and shout out to you again for another great broadcast. Looking forward to watching this one back.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining me up here tonight, Micah. I look forward to seeing you next week, and hopefully you get to talk to you again there.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. You have a great night. Alrighty, folks. Micah Hendricks out of the booth, and that is going to conclude our coverage tonight of round number 5 of the Alpha Touring Challenge Season number 8. Folks, I hope you all enjoyed the action that you saw here tonight. If you enjoyed what you saw, hit the like button. Lets me know that we're doing an all right job up here in the booth. And hit subscribe. Catch all the action that we have here on Team Goon Squad happening throughout the week. We cover all sorts of racing content on the iRacing platform. So if you are wanting to catch some live action, you've come to the right place. And folks, head on over to the Alpha Touring Challenge website. You can see that listed on the bottom of your screens. Now, if you want to be a part of the racing here with Alpha Touring Challenge and see if you have what it takes. And folks, my name is Mason Heimball with Team Goon Squad, bringing you the action here tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you who's tuned in and watched the broadcast, whether it be live or post-live. Thank you all. We appreciate your support, and we look forward to seeing you next week for round number 6 as we head to Germany, the Nürburgring. The Grand Prix layout for an hour-long race. 60 minutes instead of the 20-30 layout that we've been doing, but I am looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. Look forward to seeing you all next week, same time, same place. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
Oh, Pearson gets into the 95 of Bolts. Here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona, and away we go for the first time. Nicholas Borcel, Sean.
It looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's, possibly a little bit of contact.
Now, as we've got 3 wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Nice to go out here for Circuit Spa Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
Just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, Justin Sang.
They are ready to go. The lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Okayama International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons.